And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to today's Rowdy.com Big Three. We decided to stand for this one.
We did.
Because we're giving the testing at Daytona International Speedway a standing ovation. Cars back on the racetrack, and so we've got some stuff to talk about, Cutler.
That's right. That was a nice rationalization for our decision to stand right there.
Bassmasters, Buzz Cutler with you, and what are the issues coming out of yesterday?
Well, let's start. Well, it's not really an issue that came out of yesterday. This is going back to the point system.
Okay.
But Tony Stewart was talking about it yesterday at the Daytona test. Let's listen to what he had to say first.
Honestly, I've kind of been one of those guys. It didn't really bother me when they changed it the first time, and if they change it again, it really won't matter to me. You know, as long as we all start the year and we understand what the point structure is and how you get the points, then you race accordingly.
Interesting dichotomy there, I thought. Number one, whatever, I don't care that much. But number two, I will race according to the point system. I will adapt my behavior to whatever the point system is.
That's the crux. That's the crux of this whole argument we've been making, that the point system is going to adversely affect the on-track competition. Tony said it. There is not going to be the incentive to go for those higher positions because they're not going to really gain you anything more in the points. You know, the difference between a 10th place and a 3rd place is just not that great.
Well, one thing I think we have to understand is that the current point system does acknowledge that higher places are worth more. That's why if you make a pass from 3rd to 2nd, your score goes up by 5 points. But if you make a pass down in the 30s, it goes up by 3 points. So the current system recognizes some difference between what you ought to get for making passes further up on the racetrack and further back on the racetrack. The system that they're proposing would recognize no difference there. It would make all those passes worth the same. That's the problem I think we have with it. And I do think you'll see, if we go to that system, the teams will quickly figure out consistency is more important than those big finishes up at the top. The big points events will be wrecks where you lose a lot of points, not moves at the front where you're still only going to gain 1 point.
And just look at how behaviors changed once the chase came into being, how Jimmy and Chad sort of pioneered using the first 26 as a testing session in order to be ready for the last 10. Don't tell me that the point system doesn't change the behavior on the track. That's ludicrous.
I think it does. Issue number two.
Issue number two. Of course, one of the people everybody was hankering to hear from yesterday was the prodigal son himself. Everybody's All-American, Dale Earnhardt Jr. Let's take a listen to what Dale Jr. had to say at Daytona International Speedway yesterday.
The track's in pretty good shape, and looks like the 24-hour test and just a bit of time that it's been since the tire test we had in December, the track's starting to change a little bit, and it was smooth as glass when we first tried it in December, and it's starting to become a little more rigid in places and change color in places.
I'm sorry, what?
God, Junior, we have to stop. He's bringing me down. He's bumming me out, Junior.
You know what? You can listen, Cutler. I don't think you understand.
Oh, I understand. He needs some amp.
Do you really want to get all your energy out in January? No, you want to pace yourself, dude. You want to stay easy, calm, let it flow. Don't get so crazy on day one of the test. There's not basically what he told us. Morning of the test, single car runs at Daytona, especially when there's no handling factor. It ain't that big a deal. There's not that much going on. So we all just need to calm down.
Oh, come on.
Dale Jr. was trying to say.
If the Junior Nation is looking for 2011 to be Junior's turnaround, he didn't exactly start it off with a fanfare or instill a lot of confidence in his fan base with that sort of Eeyore-like approach to the testing yesterday.
You're doing what everyone does, which is you're overreading into Daytona. We'll get to the Daytona 500, and we'll see some results, and everyone will go, oh, he's going to be awesome this year, and he's going to be terrible this year. And the fact of the matter is, Daytona, what you do in the test, even what you do in the Speed Weeks and the 500 really doesn't make a difference as far as what you're going to do during the season.
It's not the Daytona 500 I'm overreading or reading at all. It's Junior's buzzkill, man. It's Junior's attitude,
Why do you want
Junior's
so much
mood.
from him? You want too much from Dale Jr.
Because
hasn't he given enough?
You know why I want too much from Dale Jr.? Because the fate of our sport rests upon his shoulders.
I say give the man a break. Issue number 2. Three.
Yeah, can we move on to 3 now,
Please.
or do you want to talk about Junior's...
No, I'm done.
Bumming me out some more. Okay, issue number 3. So, Trevor Bayne is going to be running the 21 for the Wood Brothers. which means that Bill Elliott, who was running that ride, was free, and James Finch grabbed him up for the 09 of Phoenix Racing.
Right.
So what's interesting here is that the Wood brothers go with the youth, whereas James Finch goes with the old school guy, which is a nicer way of saying old guy, because you put school in there, it softens the blow.
Uh-huh. You could have said elderly.
Whereas,
the elderly gentleman.
So obviously James Finch passed on guys like J.J. Yaley or Scott Speed, young guns.
I thought J.J. had a ride already.
Well, he does with Whitney Motorsports, but who knows? Maybe he could have,
Maybe he would have preferred the 09.
I don't know. They have Hendrick equipment.
Have you talked to J.J. about
Where's
this?
Whitney getting their equipment?
That I don't know.
Right. Well, so it's just interesting to see the different strategies. James Finch wants that Champions Provisional, wants perhaps that old school fan base, that old school visibility, recognition profile, whereas the Wood brothers might see themselves as being able to build on something with Trevor Bayne. Two very different approaches.
Well, that's right. I think you hit it on the head. It is two very different approaches. When you talk about a Bill Elliott, you're getting a few things. You're getting a veteran guy who's proven himself over the years, who's a known quantity both in the public eye and on the racetrack. So I think he can be fairly confident that whatever the car has to offer, Bill Elliott's going to pretty much get what that race car has to offer. Now, at this point in his career, he might not be getting you that much more, but you'll also get, hey, if you've got sponsors coming in and they want to meet the driver, they're going to meet Bill Elliott. That's a pretty big deal. Now, if you take a Trevor Bayne or a J.J. Yaley, J.J.'s a good example of a guy who's been through some. He's had some cup races. He's done well in some, not so well in others. There's still some question marks around JJ. What can this guy do in the Cup Series, given his talent level, which we know from his previous career is pretty high, and given his experience? So do you want a known quantity, or do you want to go with the potential risk or the potential upside of a younger guy?
Well, for me, I would prefer the unanswered questions with a J.J. Yaley or Scott Speed rather than the resolved questions, the answers we get with Bill Elliott. It's hard for me, and I don't mean this is going to sound awful, but it's hard for me to envision James Finch and Bill Elliott doing anything other than picking up a paycheck from week to week. You would think that if really what they wanted to do was to build that team and get it in a place where eventually it would be competitive for wins, they would have gone with an up-and-comer who may not,
Is that what they want to do?
Well, exactly.
Is that a realistic plan for the resources that they have and what they're willing to put into the race team? Is that a realistic long-term plan for them?
And why are they here? You would like to think that the objective of any sports organization is to compete for wins. But the reality, it seems to me...
In racing, the reality is a little different.
The reality is that you may not be here to actually try to mount a competitive campaign.
You're looking a good bit out in the future.
But if you're looking
out... You're saying right now, you're saying in 10 years I want to be competitive for wins. Well, maybe Bill Elliott's the right guy for right now.
Maybe.
To kind of solidify things. I don't know the answer. I just think you're looking at teams with different objectives.
There you go. Well, thank you for watching today's Rowdy.com Big Three. We will be back on Monday to kick off Sprint Cup Media Week.
Yes.
We'll be going around into the different race shops, bringing you all kinds of content from that next week. But for now, have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend.
Rowdy.com. Say it like it is.
Say what like it is?
Rowdy.com.